You ready to go live? We're live? All right, folks. Anyway, what I was saying is when I put this presentation together in my head originally, I was going to make it really a deep dive into Bitcoin, starting out very basic and getting very deep. And I realized I was going to get very technical, and that wasn't really going to help the people that really needed it. And so I thought, how can I do something really basic that the people that will already know the basic parts will still gain something from it? And that's what I tried to do here. And I tried to do it where I can go through it relatively quickly and give you all a lot of time for questions. And since Nicole took Time Nazi seriously and moved us up 15 minutes, that gives us even more time for Q&A if y'all have it. And I find I get like, why do you do so many shows on cryptocurrency? Because I get like 800 questions a week about it. That's why. Anyway, what I wanted to start out with, if the clicker worked 5 seconds ago, what the hell with it? All right. What is Bitcoin? This is actually something a lot of people really tend to seem to not understand. There's two things that are Bitcoin. The one that everybody thinks about is Bitcoin, the asset. Bitcoin, the asset. Bitcoin, the thing that got written into all the TV movies and series and stuff like that. All the bad guys was mining their own Bitcoin. That's why they were rich, like Lex Luthor or something. You know, that's Bitcoin, the asset. Bitcoin, the asset that Jack Spirko told you in 2014. You might want to buy some of this. That Bitcoin. The one everybody thinks of. The one that we call a cryptocurrency. And I think what we actually should call it is a crypto money. We'll get into that in a bit. But that's the one everyone understands. It's that there is this thing that we think of as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically a series of numbers, and it's a series of numbers that goes through the second thing that is Bitcoin, the network. Those are the computers that perform the work, and they do an energy expenditure. And the primary reason for that, we can break the security down into different things like preventing counterfeiting, preventing theft, but it's security. All those computers all over the world whirring, they exist to secure Bitcoin. But there's a byproduct of that. We can actually do other things with that network. We can send things across the Bitcoin network that aren't Bitcoin. We can use a side chain called Lightning, for instance, and we can move Bitcoin cheaper and faster, but we can also use side chains like Lightning to move Tether, which is a cryptocurrency, right? Not a crypto money, backed by the US dollar, 1 equals 1. We can actually move it across there. We can move it across there in seconds. We can basically take the dollar, which should weigh nothing, but it doesn't because everybody wants a piece of the action, and they want the times and ways are you allowed to send this person money or whatever, and we can make that completely and totally weightless. Remember, John was talking about how technology, we're moving electrons, and they don't have any mass, right? If we're moving atoms, they don't have any mass, or if we're moving electrons and photons, they don't have any mass. Well, that's what we're doing here. Essentially, we make everything weightless. We can move it very, very quickly. And the network allows that. The network provides the security. The thing about the asset, and this is a word I didn't really pick up on until lately and listening to Michael Saylor stuff, absolute scarcity. Bitcoin's absolute scarcity, 21 million and no more. So you say, okay, well, Litecoin has, I think, 81 million or 83 million total units. So don't they have absolute scarcity? No, because you only have absolute scarcity once. Everything that's come after Bitcoin has been some copy thereof, and therefore it can't be absolute scarcity. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not really a maximalist. I say sometimes I'm a maximalist light. You can be a true maximalist like, well, I have some Ethereum. Peter Shitwater! Like, no, that's not me, right? Like, I just believe that Bitcoin probably is going to be the dominant thing going forward as far as money. Our other cryptos, and we'll get into some altcoin stuff and all, we can think of them as currencies, or we can think of them as technologies, depending on how we're using them and what they do. But absolute scarcity, it's the first time it was really ever discovered by humans. We created our own version of it, is what we did. There is no other absolute scarcity. Gold is not an absolute scarcity. If the price of gold goes up, what do all the gold miners do? They dig deeper and they can make more gold. Price of Bitcoin goes up, you might get more people get into mining. You don't get more Bitcoin. The amount of Bitcoin that's going to pop out between now and the end of this year is going to be the same amount if half the miners go offline or twice as many come online. There won't be any more. Even if we mined all the gold on Earth, it's a big-ass universe. There's asteroids out there with massive amounts of gold in them. Back during the exploration of what we call the New World, I don't know if that's the right term for it, but that's what we call it, so that's what I'm going to call it. they brought so much gold back. Like they went into North America first, and they were looking for gold among the Native Americans, and there wasn't much. There was hardly any. When they got in South and Central America, boys had some gold. Well, they brought back so much gold that it almost doubled the amount of gold in Europe in a couple decades. That has an impact. That's an inflationary activity. There is inflation in Bitcoin to a point, and then it ceases. But we know it's an exact known. And this is what makes it what we call a hedge against inflation if we look at it right. If you tell me, well, I'm buying Bitcoin because I don't want to lose any money in the next 6 months, I want to hedge against inflation, that answer is wrong. I think right now, this moment, I think that strategy would work, but it would be by luck and timing. It wouldn't be a sound financial strategy to say, I want to protect my money over the next 6 months. If you want to protect your money over the next 6 years or the next 60 years, I think it's a very sound financial strategy. This is what I'm talking about, being basic and trying to help people who have been around a while at the same time. I get a lot of people asking me, how do I get my Bitcoin or my other cryptocurrencies out of Coinbase? So I thought I would show you that with screen captures and teach you something at the same time, because there's this myth, Bitcoin is expensive. So this is an actual transaction that I did to make the slides for this, and the numbers just worked out the way they did. So this is the Exodus wallet. People are asking me what wallet I recommend. Exodus. I'll tell you why later, but the answer is Exodus. Jax was what I used to recommend. I don't feel they're doing a good job with customer support and upgrades. I don't think your Jax wallet is going to blow up and disintegrate. You don't have to get in a panic over me changing my recommendation. This is just what I use now. But I wanted to get, I think it was like $96. We'll see in a second, off of Coinbase from some commissions that they paid me. And so I went into my Exodus wallet and said, hey, I want to receive some Bitcoin. What just happened? All right, we're back. We're back. So I said, it's strange. So I hit receive, and an Exodus wallet ended up here. Every wallet you use will look something like this. If you're using a mobile device, you can just scan the QR code. I hit copy and copy that address. It's really not that important, but I did black out certain things in this just so I'm not putting it on the internet. I prefer people not to know certain things. And here was this $96. So then I had that address copied. I go over to Coinbase. I hit send receive. This comes up and says, well, how much do you want to send? Select Bitcoin. Say send all. Total value came in. It says we're going to send this. Then, do you actually want to do it? They make this a multi-step process so you don't accidentally do something you don't want to do. When you say send now, you'll have a phone number in your Coinbase account, and they'll send you a text message with a verification code. I really didn't need to cover that, but I did anyway, just so some dumbass wouldn't tell me how stupid I was for not covering up a code that is no longer used for anything. And then you drop that code in and you hit confirm. That's it. Any of you that have crypto on Coinbase and you're afraid to take your crypto off Coinbase, this is the whole thing. I'll show you what happens next, but that's it. It's not hard. Nothing bad is going to happen. If you have like $5,000 or more on there, or any significant amount of money, take $100 first. Make sure you're comfortable with it. Then take the rest of it. Okay. But it's not hard. And then this is what happened. Now, this is what I want to say about Bitcoin being expensive. I often scratch my head. My cost in Bitcoin was 0.0000207. Bitcoin price at the time was 45,944. That wasn't that long ago. What's it at today? 64, something like that. My cost at the time for that transaction was 9 cents. So I sent $96 worth of Bitcoin for 9 cents. The transaction post time was 2 minutes. It's slow. So within 2 minutes of making that transaction, my Exodus wallet dinged and said, hey, the transaction's pending. People say, well, it's not final settlement, whatever. Has anybody here ever had a Bitcoin, you guys that use Bitcoin and other cryptos, have you ever had a Bitcoin transaction show pending and not show up? Ever? If I'm selling you a coffee and a scone, or even a $96 worth of cold coffee, once that thing says ping, you can have your coffee and leave. If I'm selling you a car or a house or a boat, you can wait 20 minutes, because that's how long it took for final settlement. It was 20 minutes. That's 3 confirmations. But this is what I found really interesting. It's expensive. Okay. Total transaction. So I was part of a block. That's how Bitcoin works. It's not just you all by yourself. There's no one transaction for $100 going on. They get blocked together. The total transaction here, and you can look at the block explorer and see this, 7.999 something Bitcoin, $365,000 was in that block. The fee to miners, the miners got paid $5.39 to verify that block. I don't understand how it's expensive. It just isn't. Now, Ethereum, especially at peak times, can be really expensive. They're trying to solve that. This is not about Ethereum, though, so we're going to roll on from there. But I just wanted to kind of do that for you guys. And the reason I wanted to do that and take the time to do that, I know there's an assload of you, both here and online probably, who have Bitcoin on Coinbase because I said, go buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, and now you feel like it's stranded there. That's all you have to do, and it's cheap to do. There is a time situation, right? You can do Bitcoin anytime, any day, all the time. But there are peak utilizations of the network time, and a lot of people do business during business hours. That transaction was on a Sunday morning. Take from that what you will. But what about my precious gold, right? Anyone know who that is? It is Gollum. Part of it is Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff. This is underground network. I went on to one of my groups on MeWe and said, "Can anybody make me a picture of Gollum with Peter Schiff's face on it?" And either you get the joke or you don't on this. But so his precious gold. I don't hate gold. I don't want anything I'm about to say be like, get rid of all your gold or anything. But this is just fact. Everything here is factual. Bitcoin is more scarce. There's 21 million Bitcoins. We don't even know how much gold there is. And there's not 21 million Bitcoins. There's stranded Bitcoins. There's lost Bitcoins. Anybody here ever lose a Bitcoin? Or any Bitcoin? We got one person who will admit it. And I don't mean somebody stole it from me. I mean, I just can't get it. It's gone. Especially in the early days when people weren't sure if it was really going to be anything other. There's another one back there, lost some Bitcoin, There's estimated over 1 million Bitcoins lost, at least. Some say the estimate's as high as 3 million. Right? So if you take that, it's even more scarce. But again, like I said, if the gold price goes up, they're going to buy bigger excavators. They're going to dig deeper. They're going to go get more gold. You can't go get more Bitcoin. It's much easier to secure. It's easy for us, as general level consumers to say, well, if I have $10,000 in gold, that's not that much. I can walk around with it. I wouldn't advise it, but you could. But if you're an entity and you have gold reserves as a hedge, and you have $20 million in gold, and you decide you want to move your gold across international borders, even if you do it, think of the expense. What's the expense in freight? If it was just weight, right? How much does it cost to move? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to if they would do it, I'm not going to let FedEx transport my gold for me. I'm going to need some guys with some guns and some security. I'm going to need a private plane. We can move $30 million worth of Bitcoin in 20 minutes across the world, anywhere we want to. It's much easier and less expensive to move. It's also much easier to fractionalize. If I said to Jake, here, no, I'm not giving you my phone. You'll fuck with it. If I gave you this remote, don't be pushing no buttons on it. And that was a bar of gold. And I said, I want $5 worth of that bar. I don't know how you're going to do that for me. But if that was a whole Bitcoin, I asked you for $5, you just dial a number in, right? It's impossible to mine more. If I said that already, it uses less real energy than gold. Gold uses a tremendous amount of energy. We think of it as a one-time energy use. Even that, go look at what they do to mine gold today. It's not some 49er panning gold or, with a pick. They're moving massive shit tons of rock to get 1 ounce of gold. And then they're washing that rock with incredibly toxic chemicals to separate the gold from it. And then they're creating these great big pools, these weird colored waters, and some of them are there. Who knows how long they're going to be there? So it's less of an environmental pollutant. It's practically impossible to confiscate. Mr. Pugliano, we want your Bitcoin. Give it to us now.
I don't own any Bitcoin.
I don't own any Bitcoin. I do own Bitcoin. Go get it. Go take it. You say I have it. Good luck. The odds that you can, people always talk about quantum computing and all, maybe someday, maybe it could be used to attack the Bitcoin network. But I'm pretty sure if we had a higher level of computing, then that higher level of computing would be used to mine and therefore secure the network, right? So that takes care of itself. If you actually just wanted to get my Bitcoin and you had a public address for me, as though there would be one, then you would need, with a brute force attack, to pretty much have enough variables to account for all the atoms in the known universe. Go ahead. Good luck. It's very difficult to confiscate unless you're stupid. If you like give them information or you secure it poorly, yes. But if you secure it properly, it's very difficult to confiscate. It's borderless. It doesn't care. Like, I want to move my money to Argentina. Well, you're not allowed to. Okay, stop me. It can be programmed to execute your will for centuries after your death, assuming it's still around, and I believe that it will be. So have you ever thought about the word will in the first place? My last will and testament? It's your way of speaking from the beyond. This is my will to be executed with what I've left behind after I'm gone. And for most of us, how does that work? You kids get your money, they cry for a day, then they go spend it. I learned that from John Pugliano. That's what's going to happen to your money. You can actually set Bitcoin into smart contracts that pay out when you want them to based on the execution of parameters that you want. So if you think of something like a Rockefeller endowment, some of these endowments that they ran parks with or did things have been around 100 years, you have a board of trustees and compliance people, and they're costing $500,000 to look at it twice a year for 15 minutes. We just technologied them out of the equation. There's your robots. Your robots are not always something that does a thing. Sometimes they're code, right? So that you can't do that with gold. It's exceeded gold's ROI for as long as Bitcoin's existed. If you bought gold on the day that Bitcoin first came around and you have that same amount of gold, congratulations, you lost no real money. Well, you did, because it's worth about almost exactly the same amount of money. Gold's been a dead thing for the last decade. It really has. And it can be very private. It's a surveillance coin, right? I know the guy with the little doggy told you it was a surveillance coin. But it can be, if you're stupid. Try not to be stupid, right? It's a tool. You give one guy a saw and a hammer and a square and some nails, he builds you a house, and the other guy puts himself in the emergency room. It's all how you use the tool. But there's something called the Lightning Network, but there's also something I think I don't think they did it yet. I think we're like days away from it right now, called Taproot. And when you combine this technology Taproot with Lightning, it's not going to be that you couldn't track a transaction, but you'd really have to know what you were looking for in the first place. And the bigger the Lightning Network gets, and the more transactions are on it, the more complex this becomes. And so right now, yes, if the FBI or any other alphabet agency was going after you particularly, they seized your computers, you did those transactions on those computers, and they had a starting point, they can see exactly where everything went and where it came from. That will probably remain true for a long time. That's a lot different from, I can just randomly decide I want to know what John Pugliano did with his Bitcoin that he doesn't have. Right? That's a very, very different thing. And like I said, when we add Taproot to it, it comes very much to say. Another question I get all the time: what is KYC? KYC is know your customer. Now, obviously, in our community, we want as much privacy as we can get. Privacy is important to all of us. It should be important to everybody. And so, if we can do anything to add a layer of privacy to what we're doing, we tend to want to do that. But we can also be overreactionary to it. Again, if the alphabet agencies get a warrant, kick your door, and it sees all your stuff, especially if they go through your IP records and stuff like that and start piecing it together, they're going to be able to figure most things out, even if it's a very encrypted technology like a Monero or an R. Okay, but there's a difference between here and there. But no KYC, or KYC means that the company you're using as a broker knows exactly who you are and can say with certainty, to like 99 percentile anyway, that you are who you say you are. It means you give them a bank account and you give them a government issued ID and maybe something else. It depends on who they are. And that usually it involves taking a picture of both sides of your ID and you've linked to a bank account. So they can say, if I got John Pugliano's picture and I got the number of his government ID and he says it's him and I'm linked to his bank account, it's probably him. That's all that KYC is. When it comes to generational wealth, though, right? You really don't need to worry about this. I want my Bitcoin, in spite of some of the jokes I make, as white as the driven snow, as pure as the driven snow. If I want to be able to borrow against it in my retirement, if I want to be able to move it into retirement accounts, if I want to be able to will it into the future after I'm dead, I don't want any perception that there's anything not cool about it. People are like, well, you can pay taxes. Well, there's strategies we'll talk about in a second, but that's not a reason to not own a thing. John Pugliano, where is most of your money at? And other than the tax deferred accounts or tax exceeded, accounts that you, and when you sell something, you pay capital gains on it.
I'd rather have 80% of something than
nothing. Yeah, right. 100% nothing. Yeah, exactly. Now, no KYC exchange. I like no KYC. I like an added layer of privacy. That's great. That basically means they don't ask for all that stuff I said. They will generally ask you for an email address and a phone number, or to use something like Google Authenticator. This is for your security. People will often freak out when they see the term bonded email or bonded phone number. All that means is the phone number and the email are linked to your account. It's not like bonding an employer or something like that. They're not trying to trick you. That's just a term that came up in the industry. Let's kill the energy environment. Energy. So this was a very big picture, so it was hard. I couldn't crop everything I wanted, but this is an oil well. This is a big oil well. This is not like them little ones you see about as big as that couch when you're driving down the road. This is a big-ass oil well. This is a Connex trailer or container. Here's what's inside it. Anybody know what those are? Those are ASICs. Those are ant miners. That's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear right there. Now, what would they be doing next to an oil well? Right? Well, basically, you can order something like this right here. This is a full farm, a full mining farm, and have it on a truck, and it just gets delivered to wherever you want it. Then make you another one looks like this, a little bit smaller, and inside it is a methane generator. This is not a someday. These are deployed, heavily deployed in Alberta, Canada, Wyoming, and Texas right now. They go out to the energy companies, and have anybody ever seen the flares that come off the wells? So when you pump oil, you get gas as a byproduct. It is not a viable to harvest energy source, and you can't get rid of it. Like, it comes out. You can't make it stay and just take the oil. It's a consequence of oil extraction. And if we're going to use oil, we're going to have that methane come out of the ground. So there's enough flare gas in oil wells around the world to power the entire Bitcoin network almost twice right now being not used. So there's your energy argument. Now, if you want to, for a little bit of added technology, after you burn the methane, you can pump the carbon, the CO2, back into the ground. And now it's carbon negative. So hippies go away. We have energy that's being wasted. And there are so many examples right now of wasted energy. You can only send energy so far without loss. About 30% of energy from all power generation is lost before it ever gets to the grid. They'll sell it dirt cheap to the miners. Situations like this, the Bitcoin companies are coming in, mining companies, and saying, tell you what, do you have any kind of security out here? They're like, not really. Well, we'll put a shift guard in 24/7 because we have $10 million in there. It's kind of important to us. And energy companies like, freaking take it. You can have it. It's free. These miners, these latest generation miners, they can make about 40 to 44 cents a kilowatt. So even if you're buying it, you can buy it anywhere in the country. I say it's other in California. And you can make some serious money with this level of miners once you get your money back on the investment. But if that energy's free or super cheap, 3-4 cents a kilowatt, this is where I don't want to, you guys know me. I dabble in some alternative currencies. Full disclosure, I hold more Ether than I do Bitcoin. That's only because I got into Ether much earlier in the life cycle of Ether than I did in the Bitcoin. Bitcoin base said we have this new thing, Ethereum. At point, Coinbase had Bitcoin and Ethereum was it. That was all they had. Bitcoin only for a while. I said, Ethereum? I don't know what that is. Sounds cool. How much is it? It was like something like buy. That's the only reason I have more. So I'm not trying to be balanced the way I am today. I don't like giving away money. So if I make that trade on the Ethereum, I got to pay those capital gains taxes. There'll come a point where I think Ethereum's kind of ridden to the point where I want to move it to Bitcoin, and I'll do it then, maybe in pieces and parts. So I don't hate alts, but I believe as money, Bitcoin will eat everything in time because Gresham's law. Gresham's law? Good money will always take. Exactly. Right. And then the good money doesn't tend to actually get spent. It gets held. Right. Anybody see a silver quarter or a silver dime lately that you didn't buy from somebody or trade? I mean, like I was a kid, we used to go through our chains all the time. And I used to find like a week, I'd find a silver quarter or a dime. Sometimes you get really lucky, find a 50-cent piece, run home to grandpa. Grandpa, look what I got. You don't need that. Right. Be fair to the old man. He put them away for me. I got them when he passed away. He don't want me to spend them. But that's what I think is going to happen. I don't even think we should refer to, again, Bitcoin, I don't really see as a cryptocurrency anymore. I see it as money. And everything else might be a cryptocurrency, or it might be a technology with a use case, or it might be total, complete bullshit. And I'd say 95%, at least of altcoins today, are bullshit that will eventually go to zero. If you want to really get a feel for this, I got a vodka here. Forgot about that. I'm going to get there. All right. So go back to like 2015 and look up the top 20 cryptocurrencies by market cap. And then go look at what they are today. And then go look for some of the ones that ain't on the list no more and see where they're at. It happens. People get into things like Dogecoin. Xavier and I, we're going to make Dogecoin. We might cut you in for 1%, Poog, because you kind of came up with it. We were going to make Dogecoin as a joke. We'll throw it on Uniswap, and it's when you have to pay somebody but you don't want to. You give them Dogecoin. See? Right? So there's a lesson there. See how easy that is? Who wants some? Look, see? Right? It's like getting millennials to buy Dogecoin, but they missed out on Dogecoin. So we'll just say Shiba Inu, and now they have like Elon coin. And Elon's like, what? I gave you an IQ test and you failed, and you made my name into whatever, right? So there's a lot of pump and dump scams and things like that. There's some that are just jokes. Doge was a joke. And like then Mark Cuban and Elon talk about it, and all of a sudden all the youngsters are jumping on it. You know what? It's okay. I got wrecked in crypto. Fortunately, I didn't liquidate my Bitcoin to do it, but I bought some stuff that didn't work out. Anybody buy Swarm City because I told you to? I'm sorry. It didn't work out. Or Wax. Right? Like, you miss some. And when you get new to this industry, you hear these great ideas. You're buying the idea. You're not buying something that's deployable, works, and is working. So I have some rules when I look at them. There are some real. Actually, I don't want to skip this. I almost did it. All right. I just heard Michael Saylor say something that changed my entire view of this 100%. He said, if money has integrity, currency doesn't need to. Now, if you don't get that, that sounds stupid. That sounds like that's when Ken Berry's wife told him to start a YouTube channel, and he said, that's stupid. He didn't understand the words coming out of that smart woman's mouth, right? What Saylor means by this is, if I hold my wealth in money, I don't care what happens to the currency. I might have 1 or 2% of my wealth in currency at any one time. I have enough currency to pay my bills this month. Everything else is in money. And if the money is solid, the currency can fail. I don't really care. It's like going to the bar. I go to the bank before I go to the bar. I get a couple $100 out, and I drop $5 on the floor. I don't care. It's not really that important. And I'm not going to go to the bank. I'm going to the bar tonight. I want my entire life savings in my pocket. Like, I'm not going to do that. And you start thinking about that as Bitcoin is money, and everything else is some form of currency or some form of technology. Real use cases for alts, and Jake brought up a valid point. Some people might know what the fuck's an alt. It means alternative. It means anything that ain't Bitcoin. Or if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, it means shitcoin. And they're serious about it too, right? There's probably somebody tuning into this as a maximalist already turned it off because I am not 100% on that bandwagon. There are some real use cases, though. Community-specific currencies. If I'm going to run a digital platform and I want to allow commerce between the users of my platform, having the guy that runs the entire blockchain and built the blockchain from the ground up sitting next to the guy that runs the platform in my office, that makes sense. If I want privacy for my users, if I want to be able to onboard people with no KYC, right? I can do that if I have my own currency. I'm not even trading it. I'm not selling it. I just put aside an allocation and I say, well, users that do a certain amount of stuff get some in the beginning for nothing to incentivize you. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I like what Chris Prater put on float, and y'all should be on float because you can get some flokins. Will be coming soon, and or float tokens. And so, maybe I send him a float token. That makes sense. I don't know what we need to, but it makes sense. I can understand why you would do it. How about public blockchains for public records? One of my alts I really like, I'm not saying go put your kids' college fund in it, it's called Algorand. I like these guys because at least once a week I get an alert from them that they've landed something significant. Like, oh, I don't know, building the entire public records blockchain for El Salvador. That's significant. Building the first digital cryptocurrency for a nation in the Marshall Islands. That's significant, right? I don't remember what I heard today from them, but it was significant. Empowering a real estate company to sell fractional shares in rental houses. That's significant. Fairly sizable one, by the way. That's significant. Well, things like that make sense. That last thing I said about the fractional ownership, how about NFTs, non-fungible tokens? This is like the greatest idea ever being used for the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life at the same time. People are selling GIFs and GIFs and pictures of, I don't know, I don't even care. And people are making money on it for now. But there's going to come a point where somebody looks at, yeah, I own all these pictures of basketball players or whatever. Yay. Right? I just don't see this as being long-term viable. But an NFT simply says, I have rights to something or ownership of something. So we could do things like, I don't know, anybody ever buy a house in here? Who's ever bought a house? Wasn't there a lot of bullshit you paid for? You're like, I don't understand. And your real estate agent just said, shut up, sign the paper so you don't get the house, right? And there'd be somewhere in the neighborhood like $1,500 to $2,000 for a title search, right? It's one of the biggest scams on the planet. If you NFT titles on houses, anybody in 5 seconds can search that title for any legitimate lien against it or what have you. You don't need title companies anymore. Cars, titles on cars. There's a lien on car. What about a lost title? It can't get lost, right? And what an NFT could be used in that example of is this information needs to be publicly accessible, but it needs to be secure against tampering or alteration. Remember, security and privacy are not the same thing. That would be one example. There's a lot of other stuff. I'm going to give you some in a minute. Or absolute privacy. Bitcoin can be very private. It cannot be absolutely private. Anybody that wants to, I will give you an address for Pirate Chain, a currency with ticker symbol ARRR, right? If you could tell me how much money is in that address, I'll give it to you. I'm not going to do it now because it's like this long, but if you want to try it, I'll give it to you. You tell me how much money's in there, and I will give it to you. So absolute privacy would be a case. However, in time, layered protocols may allow Bitcoin to do all of this. And that's what the maximalist point is. You could be doing all of this with Bitcoin. You could be building layered technologies on top of Bitcoin. Lightning that we talked about is a layer 2. It lets us go really fast and pretty private. But they're working on layer 3 technologies now. So only time's going to tell. But I will tell you, when I look at alts and I look at something like a country designing in a currency for a public records blockchain, that's one of those things that's like you can move the mountain, but it takes a lot to do it. Back when I used to sell computer test equipment and when I used to sell especially hardware, and you'd go to a company like Altel or Systems or somebody like that, or Lucent, and you would get a piece of your hardware designed into one of their deliverable systems, a competitor to get you out of that contract had to be blasted out with dynamite because they had to go through recertifying the whole system again because they changed one component. That would be easier than, somebody going in and taking over Algorand's position in El Salvador right now. Small country, may not be that big a deal, but I do think some of these things have use case scenarios beyond what Bitcoin either is going to do, can do, or sometimes people just like alternatives. For every, Microsoft fanboy, there's an Apple fanboy. There's somebody that says you're both stupid. You should be using Linux, right? Here's a use case for NFTs. We're going to talk about this one in a breakout session on the patio in a bit. Let's say Dr. Ken and Jack decide we'd like to do a documentary on keto, or more specifically carnivore. We'd like to lock some people like Jake in a basement for 60 days. It's actually a really nice house, kind of like Biggest Loser, but we're not going to be stupid with it, right? We're not going to have, like, at the end of the week, the guy that lost the least gets thrown out. The guy that needs the most help, fuck you, go, right? We're not going to do that. So we're going to help people for maybe a two-month period. Nobody gets voted out. Everybody gets helped all the way through. Lots of details with it, right? What we could do is we could create something like, let's say, 4,000 NFTs. Because we don't have to have one FT to one thing. We can actually fractionalize a thing, like shares in a corporation, but don't tell the FTC that. They won't like that. Right now, this works, okay? We create 4,000 NFTs. We retain a percentage for each of us because we're the guys driving it. We retain a percentage for producers, participants, maybe sponsors, some percentage. And then we sell the remainder as NFTs, and all profits pay out in crypto to the NFT holders by a smart contract. Meaning if we end up getting it on Netflix and we get a royalty check, we all get our money instantly. I'm not going to go through the tech of how it works, but you know, if you want to do it eventually, it'll be disclosed. But basically a check comes in, it goes to an account, the account converts it, and it gets converted, and it by the contract, it just goes. Everybody's paid. We just eliminated, I don't know how many jobs it would normally take to be able to do that legitimately, right? It's all gone. Now, Ken told me that before he did his last documentary that he was part of, somebody came to him and said, we'd like to make a documentary with you, and we'd like $80,000 of your money to do it with. So if I came up here right now and I said, Ken and I want to do this idea we have, we think it's going to cost $100,000. Who wants to write me a check for $100,000? Does anybody, even if you think it's a good idea, want to just go, hey, Ken and Jack, here you go. I trust you, right? Maybe John would, right? Right. But if I said one of these NFTs is, I don't know, do the math for me, but $25, who wants to buy at least one of them? Right? And if you lose your $25, but if it works out, now why is it an NFT? It means non-fungible token. That does not mean that Jake can't decide, I don't like my 100 NFTs I bought in Barry Spirko Productions, you know, actual real losers or something. I don't want them anymore. Well, you know, he can go over to Jason and say, do you want to buy them? And they can work out a price between themselves. That means it's non-fungible. It's not non-transferable. He can sell it to anybody he wants to for whatever they'll pay for it. The way that's different from a Bitcoin is there's a market and there's a known price, and it's liquid. So if I have one Bitcoin, it's $65,000 and so many cents right now, and I can put it on exchange, push a button, and instantly I have my money and I know how much I'm going to get, and it goes up and down with the market. An NFT is worth whatever somebody will pay you, and there's no particular tie to anything else. That's it could be. Trading card mixed with a stock. That's a pretty interesting way to put it. Let's say I wanted to develop properties that are rented to glampers, like, you know, Brian Norton has a place and he rents out glamping sites on his own property. I don't want to do that. I want to go buy a piece of property somewhere, and I want to set up glamping sites on it, put it on HipCamp and rent it. But I don't want to spend all my own money. I'm looking for some partners. This piece of land's going to cost me $270,000. Who wants to write me a check for half of that right now? Who'd say, hell, I'd throw $500 at that. Would anybody do that? And I haven't even explained it yet. It means you're stupid for saying yes, but assuming I gave you a reasonable plan, it made sense, you know, $500, you know, and maybe then we develop multiple properties if it works, right? Each property's fractionalized. The NFTs are sold to pay for the cost of acquisition development. Profits are distributed again by smart contracts. Bitcoin may do this. There are NFTs with Bitcoin already. They're not as easy to do, and they're not as seamless. It was not meant to do this. It means you have to develop another technology to link the two together. You take something like Algorand or Cosmos, and freaking, from what I understand, Algorand right now, they'll give you a lot of help doing it because they want to put out another announcement that they just did this new deal, right? So there's tons of development on that that's available for, at least they'll tell you what you need to do. So again, that's why I think that NFTs give some of these altcoins some real use case scenarios. What do I recommend for most people right now? Buy Bitcoin. Yes, I say use Strike. Yes, I say use Coinbase. Use what you like, as long as it's not Joe Spoody's Bitcoin Emporium, right? As long as it's a reputable company. Swan's good, Strike's good, doesn't really matter. But I don't care who you use, get your Bitcoin off the damn exchange. There's no point in having a self-custody asset and letting somebody else custody for you unless you know why you're doing it. If you have one of these companies that now does IRAs with Bitcoin and you're more comfortable with that, okay, now you have a reason. I don't think you're right, but you have a reason. Letting Coinbase custody your Bitcoin is stupid. If the United States government issues a subpoena to Coinbase and says, give us things that meet these parameters, they're going to do it. They have to. Remember, they only fight the government when they have no other choice. If the choice is giving Jason's information to them, they have a choice, and that's to give your information to them, right? Once you get on the wallets, again, I recommend Exodus. I really recommend that you use a hardware wallet. The reason I use Exodus, Trezor hardware wallet and Exodus work together. Exodus was designed to work with Trezor. What it allows you to do is open your Exodus wallet and manage everything you're holding on a Trezor and in Exodus, but not move or change anything that's on the Trezor unless the two of them are together, right? And I like that. I think that's not what's called multi-sig that I'm not going to get in today, but it's as close as I've gotten, as close as I'm comfortable with myself with technology doing right now. I have considered multi-sig solutions, and this is basically there's two things that happen in two different launch sequence. Two guys had to put the key in and turn them at the same time. They ain't got to happen at the same time, but they had to be done in two different places. So if somebody like literally puts a gun to your head and says, do this, and you do what they ask you to do, nothing happens. There's another side that has to be executed. That's another layer of security. Keys.casa, I would tell you that I would trust them because a podcaster I trust recommends them, but I've never used it, so it's not a personal endorsement. Next, have a plan. I had somebody ask me to help out with this today. Have your key phrases, et cetera, where someone you trust in all caps can get to them. If you drop over and die, what happens to your Bitcoin? We haven't gotten to this immediately executable smart contract will thing yet. That's not here yet. So have a plan. Another just basic common sense thing. Use a new address every time you receive Bitcoin, whether it's off an exchange, whether Jason says he wants to buy something from me or I want to buy something from him. Whoever's receiving, use a new address. How do you do this? In Exodus, you select the thing that says, give me a new address every time I use Bitcoin. Why would you do this? It is not just about hiding from alphabet organizations. Let's say that I was really, really like Pugliani rich, and I got like 800 Bitcoins that he doesn't have, and I have them all on one address. And Nick Ferguson's like, hey, Jack, I want to buy some of your trees because I sell trees and I want more trees. Okay. And I say, well, how much is the $500? I said, well, send me $500 worth of Bitcoin. So I give him an address. He sends me $500 worth of Bitcoin. And he said, I wonder if that transaction went through. So he clicks it. He sees the address. He says, I wonder what it does when I click on this address. And it says, Jack Spirko, because he knows it's me, has 8,000 Bitcoins. Nick Ferguson might come to my house, put a gun in my mouth in my sleep, and make me give him my private keys, right? What if I am doing business and I'm receiving Bitcoin in my business, and one of my competitors finds that address, looks it up, and sees every transaction I've done for the last year and can do competitive research on me? Because now there's a lot of reasons to not do this. So make sure you're using a new address. If you you're in a hurry and you have one somewhere for some reason and you do two, whatever. Don't put all your eggs in one Bitcoin address. All right. Investing. I'm sure most of y'all have heard the term HODL. Hold on for dear life. Some people say that's what it means, but it just basically means you're going to hold long term. I feel if you HODL, it's Vegas money and everything but Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is also Vegas. It's just a lot safer Vegas. A lot safer. I can't guarantee you that it won't go down or you won't lose your money. Who knows what will happen in the future. We could have a massive coronal mass ejection and the zombies could eat your lunch. And then, maybe your Bitcoin doesn't work anymore. But
Then you have bigger problems.
I believe Bitcoin is at least a 100-year asset, if not longer. And I think it's the future of money. And everything that I see going on tells me that. Every other alt, including Ethereum, I think there's a real risk that it could go to zero someday. I don't think it's going to happen with all of them, and I don't think it's going to happen with Ethereum. But there's a risk that it could. And I would have said the same thing about Bitcoin 5 years ago. Today, things are different. When you have some of the largest companies in the world investing billions of dollars in a thing, they're going to protect the thing. And they're the ones that write the checks that buy your Congress people. And they're not going to do things that are a disadvantage to them. When you have mega corporations hiring people to build crypto divisions, we've crossed that Rubicon. The way I put this is, when this whole thing started, way before I even knew about it, computer geeks argued about Bitcoin. By about 2013, 2014, influencers like me argued about Bitcoin. By 2017, 2018, multimillionaires were arguing about Bitcoin. Do you see who's arguing about Bitcoin today? Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, billionaires. There's a pattern there, and we talk about pattern recognition, folks. All right. Again, Ethereum, I think, is your best safe alt. 2.0 is going to work. I'm not going to get into that, but they're basically upgrading Ethereum to make it cost less to use and changing it to a proof of stake protocol. I'm not going to get into today. It's going to work. And I think you're looking at soon thereafter, or as soon as everybody believes it, $20,000 ETH. It's not a promise. It is a prediction, though. But I still say get to the left of the decimal when investing in Bitcoin before messing with alts. Everybody get what that means? Left of the decimal? One whole Bitcoin. But it's so much more money now. And it's more true now than it ever was. It's more safe and more secure the more expensive it gets. I know that sounds crazy, but it's because we're talking about hard money. All right. I will take questions now. I have rules. One question per person per turn. That means you can ask another question, but somebody else has to go first. Questions in one sentence, details to follow. Jake goes after everyone else. No. Until I change my mind.
Jack, will right here at the soundboard, will Ethereum and the 0.2 be the same? You own Ethereum and then it goes to 0.2 and then it transitions, or do you got to sell and then buy 0.2?
You won't have to sell and buy. I don't know that you'll have to do anything. From my understanding, you won't. But it won't be like if you don't do something the day that it happens, everything's going to go away. I don't think you're going to have to do anything. Maybe upgrade a wallet, but I'm not sure on that. Somebody else can answer that. But no, you want to sell it. You want to go through Uniswap or some crap like that with it. No, it's not a fork.
If we perhaps were investing on our own and didn't follow your advice and already have alts but don't yet have one Bitcoin, do you think it would make sense to sell the alts to get into Bitcoin or stay in the alts?
You're a grown-ass man. It's a judgment call, to be fair. But no, seriously, I think that would depend on the alt and how much you gained in it. If you have an alt and you've gained like 4,000% on it, maybe it's time. If you think it has that's a call based on what you think yourself that is going to happen in the future. And is that alt doing really well because people buy into a story or because it's actually doing a thing? Can you explain to me not the use case scenario, but the use case implementation, how it's being done? That's what it takes for me to be into an alt.
If you go from crypto to stablecoin on a KYC or a non-KYC exchange, or from Bitcoin to stablecoin or Bitcoin to crypto, are those taxable events since you're not going to the dollar?
Yes, they are. And that was until not that many years ago, that would have been an actual question, right? There was some they didn't really define it well. I think it was 2017 or 2018 that the guidance came out that made it very clear that every time you convert one to another in the whole crypto, and I'll just call them all cryptocurrencies because that's what the IRS is doing, and then saying it's not a currency at the same time with the Ripple lawsuit. But anytime it changes, it's a taxable event, and that could be a negative event like a loss or capital gains, and it's treated by the same way. It's treated basically as a commodity, right? Which means if I receive $5 from Xavier today and I spend it with Jason tomorrow and it went up to $7 and I just spent it, I have a $2 capital gain. And this makes it very difficult for any of these to truly be used as a currency because the accounting nightmare is ridiculous. And this is why when somebody says, but XYZ PDQ coin is so many times faster than Bitcoin for transactions. So what? Nobody wants to spend it anyway. That's kind of the point. People spend it when they just kind of want to for a specific reason, or maybe they had a really big gain and they're okay with it. But people are not going to start paying like for everything they buy with Bitcoin. That was an idea in the beginning. I think the people that went out and ran with it helped promote it. I think we're all great, especially us that hold some. We're all grateful to them for doing it. But in the end, it would be like spending gold all the time, and you're not going to do that. So just because some of these other currencies spend faster and move faster, still creating these taxable events. And think of the spreadsheet. There's somebody here that mines. And I can't imagine you're counting and you're not spending it, right? You just, yeah. So what he's doing is when he does his mining for the month, he pays the fees for like hosting and stuff like that with part of his profits. And then that's a taxable event. The receipt as a miner is a taxable event. So this is not a way to get out of paying taxes. I'm not saying you can't be creative with avoiding taxes, but you can do that with anything. It's not unique to crypto.
Is there such a thing as bad Bitcoin or tainted Bitcoin?
There is. And then it's also a judgment call where you're trying to spend it and how much work they do about it. You can talk to X later. He's got a straight up story about some Silk Road Bitcoin. They call it bad Bitcoin or flag Bitcoin or whatever. But since you can tell wherever it's been, you could say, well, this Bitcoin was used by a guy to buy a gun. Not from Bud's gun shop either. When it was used to shoot somebody important. And now maybe you had something to do with it. Like that is a concern. And that's why things like Taproot and Lightning are very helpful. It's not the problem people make it out to be, though. And this is why I think if you're buying Bitcoin for your future, you should probably buy that Bitcoin from a crypto exchange that's a KYC exchange or does KYC. So I love CoinEx. I did not KYC there. I don't need to buy with a credit card there. I don't need to wire money in. I use crypto to buy other crypto. They're fine with that. But they're also a KYC exchange. Right? So if you want to wire $5,000 in and buy Bitcoin, they'll let you, but they will make you KYC first. You know why? Nobody that owns CoinEx wants to go to Club Fed, and I don't want to go either. So that means they're already making sure that their Bitcoin is valid and not tainted in some way. It's not flagged in some way because they don't know. It's not like I'm going to sell you the Bitcoin from the unknown pile, and I'm going to sell Pugliano the AMA cleared Bitcoin, American Money Laundering stuff, AML. Yeah. So yeah.
Other than R and Ethereum, are there any other altcoins that have piqued your interest lately?
I don't know so much lately. Cosmos, that's ticker symbol Atom, and it's a proof of work or proof of stake coin, so it earns interest about 7.5% right now. You throw it in an Exodus wallet, click a couple buttons, and you start earning interest on it. There's a lot of use case scenario for it. As I mentioned, Algorand. I have a bunch of LBC coin from Odyssey, but that's because I get paid for my video content there. I'm not going to make any. I'm not going to say go buy any of this stuff. I like Monero because it's a privacy coin. It uses obfuscation versus full encryption the way that Pirate Chain does. If you want, I will tell you everything I have offline. But I'm going to no, I don't have Polkadot. But I have 95% of my money in Bitcoin and Ethereum. If that gives you an indication of how I feel about it.
For someone who is simply going to buy and hold Bitcoin, does the Trezor make sense versus a paper wallet?
Yeah, I wouldn't use paper wallet in this time frame today. I would use Trezor, at least.
I was wondering on the hard wallets, you said Exodus.
Exodus is a software wallet.
Oh, it's a software
Trezor
wallet.
is a hardware wallet. So
Okay,
software wallets
okay.
we generally use for smaller amounts of money we might spend or we might move frequently or we're probably going to move. When you move to a hardware wallet, think of it as cold storage. It requires an extra step for it to ever move again.
My question was about the Ledger wallet. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Ledger Nanos are great. I used to use one. I switched to a Trezor when I found Exodus because they work together. That's all. It's nice to be able to see what's there without it being able to go away.
So for a relatively new to crypto person, do you think we should be trying to use Litecoin to transact or do anything, or just buy Bitcoin and hold on to it?
Buy Bitcoin, put yourself in the coma for 10 years. If you're not sure, That's my advice. If you want to use some like Litecoin is a great currency, for spending, it does work better than Bitcoin. I'll acknowledge it. And if you and maybe your friends or your local church under the United Faiths or something like that want to use Litecoin as your group currency, it's a fine choice. Just think, because Litecoin is also a public blockchain. And if you're going from one end to the other and back again, and I would tell you that I think there's surveillance on everything, but I bet you most of the effort right now goes into Bitcoin and Ethereum from the alphabet agency level. I'm just a guess on that, but I bet it's the case. Because how can you try to even begin to track everything everywhere when all this stuff's popping up and going away? So it might be a little good. If I was doing it, if it was me and I had my little cell of some sort, I don't know what we call them, I might use something more like Pirate Chain.
What kind of priority would you give? You mentioned getting to the other side of the decimal with Bitcoin.
That's a personal financial decision between you, your family, your God, your universe, your belief system, your risk tolerance, and if you have a good one, your financial advisor. I do think that, again, I don't like to say things and like, Jack said to do it, so go do it, right? Like, this is not like store gas, right? But I feel that we will end this year Bitcoin over 100. I don't think this bull cycle will end at the end of the year. I, along with some people that know more than me, like Willie Woo, believe this cycle will probably peter out and end somewhere in the Q2 next year, which puts a lot of time left in it. The chain analysis on Bitcoin looks really bright for that possibly ending as high as 150 to 200,000. My prediction by end of year still is somewhere near 100,000. So if you're worried about, is it going to go down in the near term? I don't think so. Now, this is also, I can't know this, but my gut on looking at this and the cycles that we've run in the past, those cycles are done. There's way too much of this crypto, way too much Bitcoin has been moved into places where it hasn't moved for 6 months or more. We used to look at Bitcoin, it hadn't moved for 2 years or more. We have enough data now over enough years to generally, when it doesn't move in 6 months, unless it was bought really super high and, or really super low and it went really super high over that 6 months, it generally doesn't move in 2 years. And if it doesn't move in 2 years, it almost never moves again. That's not everybody, but that's a preponderance. So weigh that into your decision and your priority.
Jack, when you're going KYC, would you recommend setting up an email or cell phone number that's different than what you may normally use to correspond with people with, just to do those crypto transactions, the KYC, like fear of getting your phone locked out or some craziness that they do with some of this other stuff?
I don't know that I would. I mean, are you saying that basically you think that because maybe my cell phone number was attached to my Coinbase account, they might turn me off? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, roger that.
Who would turn me off though? AT&T, the government, Coinbase? Yeah, I mean, you could do it. I would say it's actually probably more beneficial to do it with a no KYC provider because you are not fully known. I mean, with a KYC provider, you're fully known. They know exactly who you are. They would know every phone number you have if you're paying the bill, right? So you might have some you might be somewhat anonymous with a no KYC provider, even if somebody took a look at the records, right? So, I'm not saying I do, but I might have like a number that I use for no KYC accounts, and I might have an email that's not associated with me that I use for no KYC accounts, or on a DEX like Polarity, I might use an email that's not directly associated with me. I probably don't, because why would I do such a thing? But yeah, I would be more in the no KYC world of doing something like that. We got any more? What are we on time, Nicole? Okay.
So you said two things. Trezor, I love Trezors. I have one. You also said Exodus wallet, software wallet for typically mobile phone. I like to use that as well. When you're using a Trezor with Exodus, Are you downloading Exodus to like a laptop or desktop and then running your Trezor into it, or are you using like a dongle adapter from this USB to micro USB or whatever your cell phone takes using the Trezor?
I'm using it on a computer, not on the cell phone. I've never attached my Trezor to my phone.
Jake, allowed to ask a question, Jack?
Yes, he can ask one question.
Okay, back in about 2018, a buddy of mine had a.
This does not sound like a question.
It is a ledger, and he did an update. He lost $250,000 in it, and so I'm kind of worried about using a Trezor. What about the physical nature of it being destroyed? How does that affect you if you put money?
You should still be updating your public and private key, and you actually don't need it to get your money.
Yeah.
So
When you set it up, it tells you to save your keys.
yeah, you save your keys. If you didn't save your keys, there's nothing that can be
That's your
done.
fault.
But if you save your keys, that's not going to happen. Do you know your keys right now? Do you want to have to get them out and type them in every time?
I do know
All right. Well, you can do that if you what if you get a traumatic brain injury?
Sure.
Right? Are you sure you didn't get one already?
That happens. How does somebody else access it? Trust
You make sure that you have a trusted person who knows how to access that. You might even have a multi-party agreement that one person could do one thing and one person could do another, and that way they'd have to want to steal from you. I mean, we're not 100% yet on solving that problem with
Okay,
technology.
time to transition.
Yep.
Okay, where we're going from here, and I understand we got an online question that maybe we can look at right after this, Jack.
Okay.
It was at the last minute.
Okay.
So we're going to go from here to a bit of a break. There are breakout sessions up on the board here, different discussion groups. Then it'll be dinner and then barter blanket. Do we want to talk a little bit about barter blanket or just let it be a surprise?
Let's let it be a surprise. We got plenty of time for dinner.
Yeah. Also, those of